I was going to ask George, what's the scariest thing you've seen in the last 2 months? Scariest visual you've seen.
Okay, only in the last 2 months.
Oh, no, you know, actually, there's been a lot of scary things in the last 2 months. What's the scariest thing you saw before the last 2 months?
Wow, before the last 2 months, the scariest thing.
In the long ago, George.
In the before times.
Oh, okay. So the scariest thing that I think I had ever seen was I was in the basement of one of my buddy's house, and we were, just messing around, classic kid stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Guy had a dartboard, and his brother threw the dart, and it just impaled in the back of this dude's head.
Oh my god!
And the whole needle was gone. And thankfully his mom was a nurse, but she literally just came down and yanked the dart out of this kid's head. And
that's how you bleed to death.
Did little blood shoot out at the end? Did a little geyser of blood pressure kind of squirt out that dart hole?
Who even knows? Because I was so far out of the house at that point. I was like, bye guys, I gotta go.
I was gonna say, if I saw the dart go in, I'd be like, I'm out. And just friendship over.
Did the kid live? The kid lived, I assume.
Oh, yes, he sure did. In fact, he barely had a little scar, but it was, it was very scary. We did keep going there though, because he had an arcade cabinet of Rampage. So.
It's amazing how much obvious red flags and danger you'll disregard when your friend has the better video game system.
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to be like, yeah, we did finish out the game of darts, though. We counted the skull shot as a wild card. He got to have whatever points he wanted.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was brain damaged by that point.
But now he's a United States Senator, so it's fine. Everything's fine.
God bless.
God bless this country.
I gotta be honest, long ago when we could go to bars, I never trusted any darts ever in a public setting.
Darts are an insane thing to give to drunk people.
Oh yeah, especially Paul. I don't know if you're familiar with Good Dog in Center City, but
absolutely.
There's the dartboard up there that's right next to an arcade cabinet and also tables and also a pool table.
That room is on the 3rd floor, and I'm convinced they send the people that are being the rowdiest and the worst up there to hopefully kill themselves in that room so that they can not deal with them throughout the rest of the place.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's definitely a kill room for sure.
Yeah.
Chad, you would love this place. It's called Good Dog, and there's pictures of you can bring your picture of your dog in, and they'll put it up on the wall.
Oh.
It's a great place.
Can the dogs drink there? Are the dogs allowed to drink?
Oddly, I don't know if I've ever seen an actual dog in there. Have you, George?
I don't think so. It's pretty close quarters, so they're probably not thrilled about actual animals. That's why they have all the pictures.
Yeah, they're like, we love your dogs. Please bring a picture and leave the dog at home.
Plus, the worst part is the third floor. In addition to being the kill room, it's also where all the in memoriam section for dogs is.
Oh no, I don't know if I want to see that.
It is.
No.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on up there. I do love that bar, but
I love that bar. That's a literal kill and death room, though. That is definitely the saddest room. Yeah. They have a great arcade machine up there, though. It's one of those multi arcades where it's got all kinds of cool games in it.
Yeah,
sure, but it's just right next to a thing where blades and daggers are thrown by your head, right?
Yes.
That's the
yeah. Well, that's how you really get your motivation going. I don't like to brag, but I did set the Miss Pac-Man record on that machine. So
while dodging darts.
Yes, exactly. That's how you get in the rhythm of it. It's all working together.
Nothing focuses you like imminent death.
Can you imagine though, if an outside a brewery, one of those California hang out with your family was just like, hey, hang on our patio area, have some brews. Also, we're playing lawn darts.
Right.
We'll be throwing them up into the air randomly. So just keep an eye out.
Have you ever played with lawn darts? Have either of you guys ever actually used lawn darts?
They were banned in my neighborhood.
Too scary.
It's very scary. They're banned. I think they're banned in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not positive, but.
That sounds right.
We had a couple of them at our friend's house, and we would play with them, and we were drinking. Very, very stupid thing to do.
Oh, and that's the end of the story. I thought there was going to be
no. We never
part to that.
There was no.
And
maybe.
We never saw Jim again.
Yeah, one of those embedded in the back of my friend's skull, and there was no nurse on hand. So
Well, that's how you lose friends.
Now we got our picture of him up in the attic of that house where we put the arcade machine and the lawn darts.
Wasn't that old great psychological study about Phineas Gage where his friends were roughhousing and they threw a lawn dart
into the front of his
went
skull.
Into his brain and it made him a better person.
Saved his marriage.
I would believe that it was banned in PA though, because it's the perfect place for it.
Right.
And that means that a lot of people are doing it and getting hurt.
Yes. I think we probably had a lot of like lawn dart maimings and we were just like, no more.
Yeah, no more.
Only tiny darts in bars from now on.
Yeah. So there you go.
George, welcome to Goosebuds.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
You're from a podcast, which you've spawned from the internet, like we have. We were all born within the digital realms of the internet.
You were birthed in the RSS feeds, yes. Right? Yeah.
Who can deny it?
The RSS canal dumped you out into this physical realm.
It was a lot like the show Reboot.
Yes.
When they're going through.
Incoming George. Incoming George. Tell us a little bit about your show, because I think it's going to be relevant to what we're going to talk about today.
Definitely. So I'm the host of The Best Little Horror House in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest at least. So the idea is it's a look at like the personal nature of horror. We talk to our guest about how they got into the genre, what scares them in general, and then they bring a movie to us and we talk about that movie, its place in like cultural context. We go through the beats of the movie, talk about shots and themes and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Paul himself was actually a recent guest. He did The Lost Highway, which was absolutely spectacular. And what's also nice about the show is that I also, for the like, while usually they're all great horror movies and I do genuinely love them, I, for the time of the show, agree that it is the best horror movie ever made. And so it creates like a nice area for people to not feel like they have to soft sell their passion for it. And they can really talk about why they love this thing and not be like, oh, George is going to be like, actually, I hate that. This movie sucks.
Right.
Like, so it's just a nice look at the thing that we love, horror movies.
Yep, and so that I think is going to showcase to the people who listen to Goosebuds that you know what you're talking about when it comes to horror.
Well, I try.
and actually, terrifying stories where you're worried about the fate of the protagonist and not just, oh, a dog jumped out of the woods.
Yeah, definitely. This is it's really a hell of a goosebumps that we're talking about here today. I gotta say.
Yeah, we are talking about how to kill a monster today. And again, you've seen many movies, so you are an expert on how to kill monsters, probably.
You'd think that, but there's different techniques in every goddamn movie. If they could just agree on one.
You got the Van Helsing strategy. You got the Ernest against the troll strategy.
Exactly.
There's a lot of famous. Who would you say, George, is like your favorite monster hunter?
Oh man, I mean, I love the classics, so I probably would go Van Helsing. The original Dracula stuff is so great. That Nosferatu that Werner Herzog did is friggin' incredible. I'm not convinced that Klaus Kinski isn't a nightmare that Werner Herzog had and just dreamed up, and he haunts us all.
He just birthed his nightmare onto film strips. Yeah.
And that's Klaus Kinski for me. So so having someone to take him down like Van Helsing, that's my guy.
Well, sorry to say it, unlike your podcast where you agree with people, we're Ernest people. We stan Ernest on this podcast. Okay,
Ernest has killed so many ghouls and criminals, I guess. Yeah, also criminals.
He's all over the place, and good for him. I mean,
he's killed everyone but V.E.R.N. He can't stop V.E.R.N. He's tried to kill V.E.R.N. so many times, though.
We never see V.E.R.N., right? We never see the named character. He's always his POV. What if V.E.R.N. is like in a? I'm trying to think of the actual term besides a Horcrux. A simulacrum, maybe, or an or. He's a Vincent Price in a 13 Ghosts Scooby-Doo. And V.E.R.N. is sort of his like ghostly assistant.
See, I always took it as like Diane from Twin Peaks.
Okay, yeah.
He just talks into the recorder, and there's someone way off in like Ernest headquarters.
Yeah, V.E.R.N is actually like a robot. Like V.E.R.N is actually an acronym.
Oh my god,
wow. It's all coming together.
I think we finally figured out the puzzle that is the Ernest filmography.
There we
go,
guys. It's perfect.
Well, we need to puzzle out what the fuck happened in this book, I think.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, this one's insane. This one was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
George, have you read any other Goosebumps recently? Is this the first one you've read in a while?
It's the first one I read in a while, but maybe it's just because it was so genuinely involved in horror, but I think that I might be going back and reading a few more.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I want to encourage you, but also to temper your expectations.
This one, it felt like, so in a lot of them, they do what he did in this book in the early chapters, which is lots of fake jump scares, lots of, not horror, not scary situations leading into not scary reveals, tons of that.
Right.
Sure.
And very rarely does he start out with actual horror in the beginning and actual scary things happening. When it does, it's nice. So
yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I was reading the beginning of this one and I was like, great. It's one of those books where it's just going to be 3/4 of shitty chapters of kids being idiots, scaring each other and their dog jumping out and scaring them.
Yeah.
Well, especially since they do have the dog.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you see a dog, the dog is only there for one reason. It's to provide a couple of really stupid jump scares. That's all the dog ever does.
Yeah. R.L. follows the Chekhov's dog style of storytelling,
Yes.
where you're going to mention the dog in the first act, and at some point, also in the first act, that dog's going to jump out and scare you.
Yes, that's R.L.'s Chekhov's gun.
It's so funny too, because like they're like, oh, it's a tall black form with glowing red eyes, and that does not describe a golden retriever.
No, it does not.
No. It's a labradoodle at the very least, or something.
Yeah, unless they were in the swamp, like noodling a catfish, they were not below that dog. That dog was not towering over them.
No.
Oh, by the way, we talk about the swamp before we get into the plot of the book. I was so thrown by, this is a really, I think, great basic Goosebumps cover, right? The default one is a door with big, like almost Muppety clawed hands reaching out, no face.
Yes.
It's better left to the imagination.
Yes.
I remember this cover, and I think I always ripped off these claws whenever I was trying to draw monsters as a little kid.
It's great.
It's a great cover.
It's a great cover, except he gives the steps to how to kill a monster on the cover, guys.
I mean, does he though?
What are the steps, Paul? I missed the text on the cover.
Step 1, run. Step 2, run faster.
For my money, that doesn't actually get the job done.
No, it doesn't.
No, that's very true for it.
He's not building confidence in his game plan here with those two steps.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I just want to point out that the that's all fair. I just feel like this cover to me evokes a completely different story than what this book at least sets the tone for.
Well, the picture on the cover also shows a normal ass house, not a fucking castle that's falling apart.
Yeah. What's the book we already covered on the podcast with the Mud People? I'm completely blanking on which one we read before.
I know what one you're talking about. It's like it came from the swamp or something like that.
It came from the swamp. Yeah, like that is the cover that matches what at least the first half of this book is.
Right.
Which is like, we should probably set the story a little bit, right? Like you already covered, but we have two kids.
Real quick, It Came from the Swamp is a movie. We were wrong. That wasn't the right one. Oh, it's called You Can't Scare Me is the one we were thinking of.
Oh, right. Yes, he wanted a generic title. Of course we did.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. We follow two kids who are... An important detail that has really stepped out that does not matter at all is that they are step brother and sister.
Oh, that's the first note. I don't know. So again, George, I know you haven't read a ton of Goosebumps books recently, but very rarely are the parents are almost always, normal mom and dad, not divorced. I think these might be our first divorced parents.
Wow.
Yeah, divorced and remarried parents. Yeah,
he's you know, it was 1993. He's getting with the times.
Yeah,
or 1996.
He felt like it finally needed to be said. We needed to acknowledge the divorce problem that was happening.
He quickly was learning what every animated movie from the last 15 years has learned, is that you gotta have a single parent.
Yes,
of course,
you gotta have. A parent's got to be missing. It's too many characters to write if you got to have an extra dad or mom.
And you get that bonus sympathy for the kids.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
he does. I will say though, he switches that up, but he does lean back on the deaf grandparent.
Yes,
which,
he does.
You know, that's a classic Goosebump trope, as far as I'm aware as well. So
he does pick some fun at old people, which is always great.
But these old people are incredibly capable. I'm starting to wonder if they're like 50. Like, you know what I mean? They're not actually old grandparents.
They're old in the eyes of the 10-year-olds in this book.
Yeah. Well, so I also I watched the TV show version as well.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It is so much of even just the setup is so different.
Really? Okay. What's the setup in the TV show?
So first of all, in the TV show, it's a honeymoon for this newly married family. So they're still divorced, but instead of a work trip, they're on this honeymoon. So at least you're like a little bit like, I understand why the two kids don't like each other quite as much, instead of like, you know. But then on top of that, we mentioned that they're in this like giant castle in the book. It's like a swamp shack in the show.
So they went with a classic swamp shack. They didn't go with a castle.
Right.
This in the book is depicted as like kind of a Resident Evil mansion. I feel like
it's weird. It's a castle, and I was like, what is this, like a civil war? Like they decided to build a castle during the Civil War or something? Like, what is going on here? Who built the castle?
I don't know, but there's just so much like little, like there's the grandfather is not deaf in the show.
Okay.
There's no dog in the show.
Okay. They didn't want to work with animals. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's like a huge. Like, because they're in the swamp and, like, Louisiana is, I think, like, where it's supposed to be taking place, there's a huge, like, spicy food subplot in the show.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
So the director really took some liberties with this one.
He sure did.
Wow.
Sure did.
Cool.
How dare they defer from this grand
from
source
the Bible.
material?
Listen, I will say that as far as source material, this book had it right on in terms of the true terror of rickety bridges.
Oh yeah. Does the show show an actual like car crash?
No, there's no such
rickety bridge.
They're covering up the fact that 47,000 structurally deficient bridges in the U.S. in 2019.
This is why we brought you on the show, George. We knew you'd bring up the stats.
Yeah,
is that a real fact? Is that a real fact, George? I'm terrified.
That is a real fact, and here's what I'll tell you as well. That number is down 54,000 from 2017, but the only reason that it went down is because they loosened the definition.
I thought you were going to be
of what is a bridge? Like,
of what structurally deficient means, and so. Realistically, 4 in 10 bridges is found in being of need of major rehabilitation work.
Absolutely
in the US.
terrifying.
And if you factor in that 6 out of 10 bridges have a troll underneath, you can't go over any bridge.
Bridges are done. Don't do bridges anymore.
Don't do bridges.
We're not
bridges are over.
I thought you were going to say the numbers were down because all of those bridges collapsed.
I thought so too. I thought that too.
Nope, they're still up there waiting for the right person or the wrong person to try and drive across.
Okay, yeah. So for those who haven't read the book, this book starts like pretty early on
with terror.
A genuine terrifying car crash where the family vehicle driving them to their grandparents because there's a, quote, work emergency in Atlanta that they need to be at.
That both parents have to go to, yes.
Both parents. I immediately, just for no reason because of the pandemic, by the way, I assumed that was like some sort of medical emergency and they were doctors having to like...
The CDC is there.
Sure,
so.
yeah, that's true.
CDC, yeah, I was like, I've seen the zombie movies. They got to get there.
Yeah.
That's right. It was Atlanta, not Louisiana. My mistake.
Listen.
We're a bunch of Yankees here, okay?
That's right. We're carpetbagging our way down there.
Yeah.
So, and as opposed to, also because they couldn't bring their kids there, I'm like, well, that means the entire city's on lockdown, and that's why you can't bring your kids to Atlanta.
Yes.
So driving through the swamps to their grandparents' place, well, only one of the kids' grandparents' place is important, the car just goes off the bridge and crashes, and they like scream, and that's a cliffhanger.
Literally.
It's a truly scary moment.
It's a literal cliffhanger.
it gives you the false hope that the beginning of this book is actually going to be scary, because then from there they meander around. The kids wander off into the swamp at night, which, these parents are not going to win any awards. I'll tell you that much. No. They're not paying attention to these kids. The kids wander off. They get lost. Like we talked about the false jump scare of the dog being a swamp monster. They get covered in mud, and they end up at the castle, right? At their grandparents'
sorry, I want to call one detail about the damage to the car, Paul, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So the way it described to me is the car went straight off and dive bombed into the swamp.
Yeah, it went head first, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, Dad just needs to change a tire, and we'll be fine." I'm like, "No, what is this? Is this like a 4x4? Like, what are you driving?"
Right.
It's a Toyota, man. Those things can take any day.
Oh my god, I guess so. Yeah.
The detail I wanted to mention is that Clark, the little boy, who is established to be a coward,
yes,
is reading a comic book about scary swamp monsters on the way to the swamp.
Yeah,
what a terrible decision.
What is he doing? Look, as a scared child, and we've discussed this on your podcast, George. As a scared child, I did occasionally indulge in my own fears. For some reason, some masochistic reason, I needed to indulge in my own fears. So I kind of got it. But you're right. The parents, and again, the parents should have been like, George, you're a little coward. Get that book out of your hands. You're not allowed to read it,
guys.
Or sorry, I called him George. I called the child George. He's not. His name is not George.
It's okay. I was a cowardly little boy too.
Me
so
too.
I got it.
Look, coward recognizes coward. Okay.
Exactly. But on top of that, I understand indulging in your fears every now and then, but that's like if I was like, oh, I'm going on a long distance flight. Let me pop in Final Destination.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, guys, this is the classic storytelling technique of you establish some key strengths of the characters early on, right? Clark loves to read. Clark is a reader who covers monster comic books. Despite, unfortunate George missed out, is we love tracking when RL likes to mention a real or not real Marvel property.
Yes.
Yes.
There was none mentioned here. This wasn't even one of the indie horror comics, I think. It was just Swamp Monster comics.
He didn't even, we know he loves Swamp Thing. He wrote Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Okay? We knew he loved Swamp Thing. He didn't drop a Swamp Thing ref in this.
It was too easy. Too
easy.
Right.
You might be right. He didn't want to go for the easy ref. You're right.
That's what it is. RL's I can't treat these kids like kids. I got
Yes.
He's like, they know. They already know.
They know me. They read all my bios already.
Well, they have the great thing of Clark reads Swamp Thing, and Gretchen instead likes to read about nature and studying these survival skills. And then the classic storytelling technique of neither of those things mattering when they deal with both a swamp or a monster.
Chad, I don't want to jump ahead, but I do got to say that Clark's reading ability does, in fact, get them somewhere.
No, Clark's reading ability is hot garbage in this book.
I think that the idea that he's able to read is all we needed to know.
Yes, yeah. It didn't need to be established that he liked to read, just that he wasn't illiterate. That's all we needed to know.
If you cut out that whole chapter and just said, Clark and I both can read. We're educated. And then it just cut to the next chapter as they showed up.
Clark and I are kids. We can read.
So I think, Paul, you were setting up that they got through the swamp.
Yeah.
Their parents called them back on. They are covered in mud, by the way, and the dad is not making a single complaint about mud inside the car.
Nope.
Whose dad is this?
Yeah, right? Completely unrealistic dad. Maybe there's something going on with the divorce. Maybe he's tiptoeing, walking on eggshells about this, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about it for a second to see if it stuck to you guys too. It doesn't matter at all in the book, but I was really stuck for a couple chapters about the dynamic of this family is so weird. Not because they are divorced, because from different marriages. That's all over the country. It's totally normal. Family wherever you can find family. But the detail that was tripping me up was they are both stepkids from different marriages who were the same age, and the divorces happened at the same time?
Weird synchronicities.
It was
That's synergy, man.
It was just so specific. I thought it was going to come into play later, or we're going to at one point Clark goes well, they're not my grandparents.
Okay. I was gonna say maybe it's because I was a demure child and I didn't want to rock the boat too much, but I wouldn't have made fun of somebody else's grandparents. That seems like a dick move,
way.
you know?
Yeah.
Felt like a
well,
real
yeah,
dick
they're
move.
also your grandparents now, right? Like they are. If you're married into, they're your pop and your mama. Like you gotta
butter them up.
Yeah, you gotta butter exactly. Them up. They're gonna be feeding you pot pies all weekend. You gotta be nice.
Oh my
God.
Gumbo
in the TV show.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so they replaced the pot pie. They just didn't want to make pies for it. They were like, get a big pot of stew and it'll be easy to put on, and we wanted to cook it and make it.
That would
good.
maybe be a better choice too, because in the book, these kids fucking complain so much about being served pies. It's nuts.
I know.
They're so mad about it.
I love chicken pot pie.
Chicken pot pie is incredible, kids. You idiots.
Oh, it was a chicken pot pie. I know there's like a rhubarb pie that they keep talking about. Like, oh, Swedish sugar rhubarb pie. And they're like, oh, gross.
Oh,
can't believe we're going to eat rhubarb pie, Grandma. I'm like, what? Like, no.
I know.
Listen, here's what I'll say, though. We have no idea what the condition of that kitchen was like, considering that she does get attacked by roaches earlier.
True.
Yeah, it could have.
They are hoarders.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, you're right. It could have been, those pies could have been nasty. They don't really give too much of a description of the pie, but
yeah.
Well, so that's what happens, right? They show up at the house. The grandparents come out. We learn that Grandpa's deaf. Grandma likes to cook. Basically, we're led into this disgusting castle, a trash castle,
the Spencer estate,
a trashel,
if you will. Yes. And they go in. There's 3 windows. There's 3 disgusting turret windows.
No windows in the show.
No windows. It's all dark, all dingy.
Not a one. Yeah, they are very specific in that there are 0 windows. Just the door has like a little entryway.
Gotcha. I'm kind of concerned about that real life building not having windows. There's some messed up shit going on in there.
How do you get airflow in this thing? I guess the whole thing is just, it's like a castle, right? So there's just, the mortar is not great everywhere, and there's just going to be drafts, right? That's how you get your fresh air. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if that's almost like realistic, where they're like, oh, we need to have no windows in this castle so that
for protection,
it's easy to defend.
Right. Right.
Well, it made some sense now that you guys mentioned it in the book, because every once in a while the kids would kind of, while they're trying to escape, would uncover like a window as if that was a big deal.
Right.
Like, oh, this is a window we can break through. I'm like, there's not windows in every room. I missed that detail, I guess, in the first part of the book. Yes. I wasn't sure why this was the one door in the video game level that you could open as opposed to all the other ones.
Yes. It's weird. It's a weird detail.
It's a very weird detail, but he Chekhov's done it, and he definitely laid out, hey, there's only 3 windows here, guys. 3 windows here, guys. So, yeah.
It does. I will say though that beyond the fact that it is like a castle, it does. Their descriptions do kind of remind me of going to my own grandparents in terms of like they lived in a mountainous area of New York, so there was a lot of forests surrounding it, scratchy blankets, creaky floorboards.
Oh yeah,
I was like, all right, I'm putting myself in their shoes. I'm back in it. Grandma's cooking too much. I'm there.
Yeah, she's trying to feed me up. So who else thought that when they got fed tons of food at the beginning that the grandparents were in on it with the monsters and were going to feed them to the monsters? Did you guys think that?
Absolutely.
I thought we had a Hansel and Gretel situation.
I was considering more that something was up, like they were feeding the beast in the backyard. I honestly was too triggered about, again, they were complaining about blueberry pancakes. Do you know how much I would love homemade blueberry pancakes during this quarantine? Oh my God.
Wow.
It sounded delightful. Although I gotta say, I was freaked out that the grandmother apparently didn't know how to properly eat because there was just food all over her face.
They did describe the batter was all over the kitchen, like dripping off the stove.
And blueberry stuff like on her mouth, and she like wiped it into her hair. Like she like the parents dropped them off with these grandparents, and they're senile.
Look, they talk about how bad they smell too.
Yes. You know? What the hell?
Did the parents even like inspect the house? It seemed like they kind of just dropped them off and were like, "All right, just ring the door. The grandparents will know what to do. Bye."
You know what?
It was a work emergency.
You know what? I was just gonna say, George. I think like the director of the TV show definitely read into what RL was trying to say, which is that the parents were going on a fuckcation and they did not want these kids around.
Absolutely. And I mean, God, this kid is such a whiner too, Clark. Like he's like, the grandma at one point is like, oh, you guys should go play. And I think that this comes up more in the TV show. They really emphasize it, but he's like, play? What are we, 2 years old? And I'm like, first of all, you're practically 2 years old.
Yeah.
Second of all,
you're not 15, so you're 2. Right.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like, that's a classic lament of the foolish child, man. You gotta get those playtimes in while you can.
Yeah. you don't know what you're gonna miss, kid.
Yeah.
If you're a 5-year-old listening to this podcast, first go get an adult. Second, enjoy it while you can.
That's right. Nap time, playtime. Make them last for as long as possible.
Do that all day as much as possible. Eat, nap, play.
There's one detail I want to call out too that's mentioned because it comes up really important later, and I wanted to ask your boys about this.
Okay.
The town itself is non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
They refer to that there's like a phone in town at like the sheriff's station or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way to get a call out. And the grandparents are just fine. I guess they just bone all the time in this castle. I don't know what they do. So like, I guess
the grandfather is constantly working due to his deep Puritan work ethic that he's got.
Yeah, he's always adding new layers to the house.
Yes.
Like that famous ghost house where she just kept adding floors.
Yes.
He's a big hunter too in the TV show.
Oh,
okay.
So he goes out into the swamp to hunt.
Cool.
That makes more sense than just deaf grandpa who likes blueberry pancakes in the book.
And screams things like "works builds thirsts."
Is he wrong, Paul?
He's not wrong.
No,
he's not wrong.
That's very true.
Those are words to live by for sure.
Well, so I guess like not to nitpick it too much, but I guess the parents called ahead to the sheriff. The sheriff came in because everything's delivered by letters here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Delivered a letter to the grandparents that just said, "Hey, your kids are dropping off their grandkids. Be ready." And then the grandparents said, "Oh, thank you, officer. Good day." And then they went back about the lie, the lie that they live every day with a monster.
Right.
That's true. I mean, God, how long did it take to set up this, stay there?
The situation is very weird. So that I also would call it doesn't seem like the grandparents had a car, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
They had a car, but it was in the shop, but the guy was going to just drop it off at some point, I guess.
I guess, which is important because the grandparents abandoned them.
Yeah. I think we should... Okay, we've talked about these kids. We have them almost die. They almost fall through holes in the floor. They, like George, like you said, they discover cockroaches and are swarmed. They have them swarm upon their bodies.
Truly disgusting.
Truly,
that's horrific.
The great thing
in a
is
box of old magazines and newspapers, which is the most old person thing in the world to do.
The grandfather is, again, he's deaf and just devoted to doing whatever menial activities he can find for himself where he's not in the house all day. The grandmother's cooking and obsessed with the fact she's completely delusional. She thinks that her house is filled with treasures, which, as we see with these children as they're walking through this house, all it is literally trash. Just like boxes of trash filled with bugs that eat trash. And it's just it's again a trashel. That's all.
I'm sure there's like 5 pre-Civil War coins that they probably had some collector's value buried.
Maybe there are some riches hidden in there. Yeah.
That treasures line really stuck out to me too, especially because there was a passage in this book that just shook me to my core.
Oh, okay.
When Gretchen is exploring and she finds the porcelain doll with no eyes, just holes that bore into the porcelain white of the face. Truly,
what the fuck was that?
Yeah, that was a great image. That was a scarier doll than Slappy. That was a more interesting visual.
Very, very frightening.
There were some sincere horror images throughout this entire book, including that one. But ultimately the first 12 chapters are just, you're just like, what is going on? But then at the end, I think of chapter 12 or maybe 13 or 14 in that range, we do a complete 90-degree turn into real fucking monster territory.
Yeah, this book realizes that it's at the halfway point and can probably start doing some stuff. And it just escalates.
They scramble to catch up. They're like, oh, by the way, here you go.
Oh, by the way, real quick, what did you guys see the monster as in your head? For me, Sweetums from the Muppets.
I do, yes.
I was going to say that, so first of all, again, very different in the show. It's in the show, it's like a bipedal, worm, W-Y-R-M.
Ooh.
Yeah,
cool.
It's weird. But in this, I was trying to get a picture of it in my head, and basically what I got was a green gorilla with an alligator head.
Yeah, that's pretty close. That's how it's described in the book. It says a gorilla body with an alligator head and rows of teeth.
But but the eyes were like on the side and not on the top, like an actual alligator.
Right.
Really weird, disconcerting. I also like.
Do you guys remember My Pet Monster from the 80s?
Yes.
Here, I'm gonna post a picture of it real quick. This is what I thought.
Oh yeah, wait. See, is this not the Noble Roman's pizza mascot? I'm so confused by this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you know Noble Roman's pizza? Like there was
no.
Maybe that was more of a Midwest chain.
That's some Indiana shit right there. We had Little Caesars, and that's it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to look this up. So, yes, the My Pet Monster, Paul, you talk about while I share you what I was getting confused about.
Well, I just, it was either Sweetums or My Pet Monster, and we'll put the picture in with the show notes. My Pet Monster.
Those are both reasonable.
It just, for some reason, I think it was the claws on the cover made me think of that, right?
Yeah, not gorilla hands at all.
I was picturing Sweetums mixed with that like Nomu Japanese mascot, like or not Nomu, whatever it is, the little brown square guy.
Oh, Domo. Yeah.
Domo mixed with a Skeksis' head from Dark Crystal. Like, that's what I was picturing.
That's terrifying.
That is ridiculously scary, Chad.
But I mean, hey, it's almost a testament to, by not overly describing it, it's more scary in your head than what it is.
So would you say, George, that the monster on the TV show, that's scary as well, Chad? Jesus.
So I just described both My Pet Monster and the Noble Roman's pizza mascot. They're both blue monsters with big teeth, except the Noble Roman's mascot has tomatoes for eyes and a pepper for a nose, which is way more horrifying.
Incredible.
Wow. Both of those pictures need to be... Yeah, we will post that with this episode because...
Realizing now it's just copyright infringement off of a Muppet character as a kid that I didn't connect the dots on.
Yes.
It's a good one, though.
Was the monster, George, in the TV show, was it scary?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And, it was interesting, too, because there was some out-of-character stuff here for Clark, where he's like, I want to play hide and seek, and it's like... That doesn't seem probable.
Right.
He wants to do that.
The scared kid wants to go hide in the scary house.
Let's go hide in the bug room. Let's just lay down in the bugs.
And then his sister has the bright idea to have a hide and seek standoff, which I think is the most boring idea a kid could ever have.
After cheating, she also cheated by counting by fives.
Yes.
And then like, oh man. And then she's just like, he'll get bored and he'll come find me.
We'll play on my terms.
It's a cold war of hide and seek, I guess.
Yeah, boring attrition. A war of boring attrition is what they're gonna have.
It's insane. It really made me laugh that the idea of these two kids just hiding in different parts of the house, just waiting for the other one to finally give up.
They're so bored. She's so bored she's about to read the old magazines her grandparents have. So I guess I kind of get it.
Which, by the way, I assume those magazines were either like New York Post or just porno mags. Like,
they were for sure. It was like Good Housekeeping or just the filthiest, raunchiest shit you've ever seen. Especially after the grandma was like, "Oh, don't go in that room. We have all kinds of stuff in there." And,
that's right. The one rule they said, right, which I was getting a lot of like Hill House vibes from this whole book, which was like, you can hang out anywhere you want. Please explore. Even go into, but except for that one room where we keep valuable stuff. Please don't go into it. They go into it immediately.
Right, of course. Well, I mean, if you're a parent or a grandparent, you should know that is literally the words that you say if you want the kid to go to that room.
Yeah, tell the kids that's where you store the green beans or something. You know what I mean? Like, they won't want to go check out.
Right. Yeah. And if you open the door and get the green beans out, that's what we're having for dinner tonight. There you go. Kids are not going in there.
God, that would solve so many parental problems for me.
I think if any of us decide to become a parent, we're going to have that thing down pat because we just figured it out.
There you go. We're set.
So, of course, they go in the room they're not supposed to go in. And when she opens the door, there stands the My Pet Monster or the Noble Roman Pizza Monster, something.
It felt very Sloth from Goonies, right?
Yes.
That shot of when you first see Sloth, like his back turned, sitting in a chair, eating.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, he's What is he? He's munching on something, right? When
I think it's
he's eating the blueberry. He's eating the blueberry pancakes in the book.
Oh, was that a watermelon in the show?
I think it is a watermelon in the show.
What? Sure, fine. I guess that's grosser.
Yeah, interesting. I guess he's eating the green part, right?
I see. Yeah, because in the book, I thought it was kind of like oh, maybe this guy will be his friend. They talk about how, like,
I did also think that.
Yeah, he's just scarfing down a big plate of pancakes and happily, and he's fine until the kids, like, scream, there's a monster in the house, and they leave the door open.
Right, yeah.
Well, that was it, was like, he's eating this thing that's clearly not meat, and so they open it up, there's that, I'm like, I see it clearly in my head, they're gonna get chased around, and then at the end, they're gonna be like, oh, he's actually an herbivore.
Yes.
You know, problem solved. And not the case.
No, not the case.
Not the case, but you're onto something there, George. I think you really are. So, like, now we get into, from here on out, the story clips along, right? Now we're having the monster chase. They're running around the house. The grandparents are, seemingly oblivious to this insane monster that's loose in the house.
Well, right. If I may add, they call for the grandparents. They run down. They call it the 3 different flights of the building over and over.
Yep.
And they're like, where are our grandparents? The dog is freaking out. Charlie, the dog is freaking. They lock the dog in a room. I don't know if that's smart or terrible.
I know.
And then
that was one where I was like, maybe a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe a good idea, but also like, don't sacrifice the dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
poor Charlie.
And I believe they pretty much immediately discover that as they run out to the door, that the front door and back door have both been locked from the outside.
Yes,
and
bolted shut.
And the grandparents are driving away in a car that suddenly works.
Right. The mechanic showed up while they were looking for this monster.
Yes.
Dropped the car off in perfect timing, and then the grandparents peeled the fuck out.
They left the kids to die.
Deuces.
And the best part is, so like, the chase happens. They're running through the house. Really, not a lot actually happens other than
have they found the letters by this point?
So they run down to the kitchen, happens. And this is where, like, okay, all right, guys, the beginning of this book pretty boring. Then a real monster shows up, right? And it's scary and it's cool. Like, we're like, oh, great, a real monster. This is true horror.
It's chasing them through the hallways, and it smashes furniture over its knee at one point, which seems really badass.
It does a backbreaker on a stool.
Yeah, it keeps breaking shit to show how powerful it is to these kids.
It's great gorilla gator.
Yes, the Gorator. Yeah, it's like, it's fucking stuff up left and right to show these kids that it will snap them like twigs. It's terrifying. But then we get to the kitchen. They finally run down to the kitchen. They escape the monster briefly. And they find 2 letters addressed to them on the refrigerator. And now I'm trying to get to the actual letters because and RL really pulls this moment and like takes every ounce of drama and pours it into it as he can, right? Because we start to read the letter, and let's see if I can find
these letters made me so mad. These letters are so infuriating.
These letters.
The letter.
Oh, go ahead.
The letter was infuriating, but Gretchen's reaction to it truly made me laugh out loud. Like when I'll let you read the letter first, Paul. But God, her reaction.
I think we have to read the letter because
Well, there's 2 letters. You had to distinguish on which one. One.
The first letter, because they're read at separate times in the story, and it's fantastic. It's fantastically terrible. It's such a slap in the face to the children that are reading this book. It's so insulting. It's so insulting to me, to you guys, to the children that had to read this book. Are you ready for this? Here are the letters. He's reading this. Clark is reading this with trembling fingers. Dear Gretchen and Clark, we're sorry to do this to you, but we had to leave. A few weeks ago, a swamp monster invaded our house. We captured it in the room upstairs. Then, we didn't know what to do with it. We didn't have a car, so we couldn't get to a phone to call for help. We've lived in terror for the past few weeks. We were afraid to let the monster out. It's so loud and angry all the time. We know it would have killed us. The kids are still scared. We didn't want to tell your parents about the creature. If we did, they wouldn't let you guys come over. Why?
Yeah.
Because a deadly monster is in our house.
Yeah, but they also maybe would have been like, hey, Mom and Dad, maybe you should leave too.
Yeah. We just complained about how we couldn't call anybody for help, but instead we wrote a letter and hid the problem that we had.
Hey, we're going to bolt the doors right now, and we're all going to get in your guys' car that has a new fresh tire, and we're going to drive to the police.
We're going to get the fuck out of here.
Charlie, get in the car. And then the dog just hops in the car and everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Here's the best part. Here's the best part is because, right, that all makes logical sense. But here's their reasoning for not doing that. We don't get many visitors here. They're fucking lonely. They're lonely. So I think this might be more of like condemnation of the parents at this point.
That's true.
We wanted to see you, but I guess we were wrong. At least they feel a little guilt, right? You should have gone to Atlanta with your mother and father and left us here to die. I guess we were wrong to let you stay.
Okay, all right.
And then here we go. Yeah.
So, well, just to add on to picture when this letter was written, in the 15 minutes since Grandma said, "Go play upstairs," and then grandparents quickly got their shit together, got the car keys, wrote these letters, put them on the fridge with magnets, and just locked the doors. They didn't even try to tell them.
Wrote this letter that breezes over their complete lapses in logic.
And Gretchen is like, "Oh, they guess.
Yeah.
They guess they were wrong."
Her
truly burst out laughing.
Dude, it's great because it's like RL just being like, yeah, I totally did not put any logic behind this thing. These kids are going to flip out. He like completely... he guesses how the children reading his book are going to feel and just puts it right in there for you.
Yeah, Paul, there's more to this letter, too, if you don't mind, if you want to continue.
Yeah. Oh, it's great because after they just talk about how they're lonely and that's the reason they left their kids, their grandchildren
also, by the way, very believable.
Yes.
I could see my parents writing this letter. I love them to death, and I could see them writing this letter. We missed you.
You never visit anymore.
You never visit anymore. Die with this monster now. We've been feeding the creature, slipping food through an opening Grandpa sawed in the bottom of the door.
Thirsty work.
It'll make you thirsty.
Yeah.
Better drink your milk. The monster. By the way, milk in the hot swamp in the middle of summer. No thanks.
Oh God.
I'm getting gumbo vibes from there. Not gumbo.
I'm getting cottonmouth just thinking about
What's the movie I'm thinking of? Not gumbo. It's Is it Gumbo? No. The
Milk was a bad choice?
the Harmony Korine movie.
Oh, Gummo or whatever.
Gummo.
I've never seen it. I just know that shot of that kid sitting in like a bath of soup or whatever.
He's like eating spaghetti and drinking milk in a hot tub. It's disgusting.
Gross.
Gross. God. Oh, God, no.
The monster eats a lot, but we had to feed him. We were afraid not to. Here's the thing. We know it's unfair to run off now, but we're just going for help. We'll be back soon as we can find someone who knows what to do with the horrible beast. Sorry, kids. We really are. But we had to bolt you inside the house to make sure you didn't wander into the swamp by yourself. It's not safe out there.
It's nuts. Even from a horror standpoint, it is so insane.
Well, and George, to get back to your point, her response to that mentally, she thinks, were they for real? And again, he just sees through his own lack of logic, has the kid voice it, and we're supposed to accept it. And then here's the best part, guys. Sorry, kids. We really, really are sorry. But just remember one thing. You are perfectly safe as long as the monster let out a loud bellow and Clark dropped the letter and it floated underneath the refrigerator.
Oh, my God.
Worst. And I mean, God, it's like the worst cliffhanger I've ever seen, especially when you take into account the payoff.
Oh my God! Well, yeah, it's great. It's great because so they fumble for this thing, right?
They warm milk this in the summer for like a good two chapters of just trying to get the paper out. Yeah. While the monster rampages upstairs and is coming downstairs, I guess.
He just dangles this thing out there for you for so long, and then they finally get it out, and he opens up the letter. As long as you do not open the door and let the monster out. Thanks,
chapters ago.
Thank you.
That happened like 5 chapters ago.
I know. It's insanity. It's insanity.
Yeah. And I can't disagree.
The book was going like it wasn't going great, then it was going great, and then they threw this at you.
Oh, there's one addendum, by the way, to the first letter. If the monster escapes, you will have no choice. You'll have to find a way to kill it.
Yes, that's right.
So they're aware as they're writing it that their advice might not be followed or it might be too late to write that. Like, they're hearing their kids upstairs messing around near the monster door. And they're like, you know what? I'll put in this extra tip just in case.
One of them hears that.
Only one.
You're right. The grandma hears it. Yeah.
Here's a classic example of not listening to your inner voice. Because they wrote this whole thing out, and noticed many lapses in their own logic, but were not self-aware enough to ruminate upon that for a brief moment and maybe solve the problem that was before them very easily.
Yeah. If it was like malicious intent, if there was some, like, I'm not trying to break this book, but like, if it was something like where the grandparents always hated them, or they blamed Clark for breaking up the first marriage, I'm just like spitballing.
Something.
Anything where I'd get why maybe these callous grandparents would be like, we're letting you take the sacrificial hit while we go get help, kind of thing, or whatever.
Also, do you realize how easy it would be to just solve this situation in that, like, they could have, like, opened up both doors, walked into town, stayed there for a week, come back, that monster would have been gone.
Starved to death,
yeah.
Or walked away. You're right.
They're literally like just feeding this thing. It like they captured it. Took no steps to just try and get it to leave.
It wandered in, like they left the screen door unlocked, and they were just like, well, it's in here now, so...
Yeah. It's like when a bird gets into your house. You gotta just open up the windows, you let it get out on its own.
Let it work itself out. Let nature take its course.
I was expecting the letter to say, like, you'll have to kill it. By the way, since this is the South, we all own guns. There's a shotgun under the dresser, or whatever. But no, there's no advice given to what to do.
None.
It's just figure it out, because we couldn't do it.
We've abandoned you. And I think this might be RL's condemnation for... he was putting the blame on his parents. He couldn't accept his boomer responsibility in the world.
Gretchen's also already hurt after she face plants from the stool.
That's true. She might have gotten a concussion.
Yeah. I mean, they're really just in a bad spot.
And the best part is she does trip over that stool and smacks her head on the ground. And then they find this letter, and then the monster chases after her again and brandishes the stool before he smashes it.
That's my favorite one. He shows like, this is going to be your skull. And then he just smashes it over his knee.
Yes.
It's impressive.
It just, at this point, I'm just mad. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just angry at this book.
I was a little frustrated that was the setup for why there was a monster in the house.
I was so upset because I was like, wow, he gave us an actual like scary monster, and it's really like a creepy setting and a scary monster, and then he squanders it with that terrible letter.
Oh yeah, because I think there's something about the core hook of this book that genuinely is maybe one of the scariest things in Goosebumps. Like, I kept picturing it as like the video game level, right? Like the PT demo of this book,
right?
Which it's unfair to give RL the level of artistic quality as the PT demo, but like that would
Grandpa was a real drag.
But like that would be genuinely terrifying to be hunted through like a Resident Evil mansion by a big unstoppable like Sweetums.
Yeah.
and the mechanics they talk about doing are kind of video gamey, right? Like, oh, let's run. Their big idea is, we know that there's a dead, dilapidated stairway on the second floor.
Right.
Very unsafe. Let's trick the monster into falling off while we hang off the banister. Really scary. That's a very scary idea.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. It works so much better in the book than it does in the TV show.
Oh, do they do the same thing in the show?
They do the plan, but you have no time to like sit on it. In the book, they do this fake out death where he falls through the like the hole in the stairs, and then like they're like, great, we're done. She's like fantasizing about how she's gonna tell her parents how right she was about not wanting to come, and like so relatable to just be like, for once they'll be forced to admit that they were wrong.
Yep.
I was right. Very relatable. And like you're like, oh man, this is great, it worked, the monster's dead, she's gonna get the parents to admit that they were wrong, and then you look at how much book is left and you're like, oh fuck.
Yep. Well, and that's the great part about this, and I think George just plays to your expertise of this is like a slasher film at the end now, right?
Oh yeah.
The monster keeps coming back. It's great.
That's right. It is. It's the unstoppable force for sure.
There's a great like shot called out in the book at another point of like, at some point the monster is holding Grandpa's saw.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I was already kind of feeling Chainsaw Massacre like vibes from this book already, and now I'm like, oh, the monster's got a goddamn tool. Like that was a very cool shot. He never does anything with the saw.
Yeah.
He completely abandons it.
He backbreakers that too.
He keeps smashing. He keeps feigning all of them.
I do want to say, I wanted to go back to your PT comment, and I want to say, Chad, that this book, like a fine work of art, raises way more questions at the end than it answers.
Well, you the listener might be going, didn't they mention that there were 2 letters at the beginning? Yes. It was very much spelled out that there were 2 letters, and then the kids completely forget about the other letter
the second
of the entire
letter.
book.
Well, so they do their plan, and they do drop this monster on its ass and knock it out, and they think they kill it, right? So then they try to escape the house again, but they can't. Again, they're downstairs. They're smashing on windows. They're trying to get out. Can't get out. Monster
They don't
wakes
have
up.
the diamond key yet to
They don't.
get
Yes,
out,
right.
or the red gem to put into the slot to escape the mansion.
Yes, they didn't look at that fine piece of art and pull the arm off and find that it was actually a gear. So they didn't do these steps, and the monster comes back and it's chasing them again. And they come up with another plan, right? And it's great because it actually does a good job of taking some stuff from the beginning, and they realize, oh, our grandparents have been feeding this monster, so it likes the food that our grandparents feed it. The daughter Gretchen decides, oh, I'll put tons of poison inside of this.
Oh my
food.
god, this poison
very disturbing.
This poisoning.
It was very scary and she loads this thing up. Rat poison, bleach, turpentine. She even throws a couple mothballs in there for good measure. Those things stink.
She sprinkles like laundry crystals or something on top. She's doing like a gourmet assortment of poisons in this pot.
Yeah. There's 7 different poisons on this thing. I wrote each one down. There are 7 of them.
Go ahead. What are they? What do we got?
You got turpentine, drain cleaner, rat poison, ammonia, orange paint, mothballs, and then she just sprays bug spray on top.
That's right, the bug spray for the final measure. I'm surprised she didn't create poisonous gas that would kill them with this combination.
If anything, she really should have just put out a big jar of rat poison and wrote pie on the side of it, and that would have been just as efficient of what she was doing.
Yeah. She's really she's enjoying it though. It's really disturbing how much she's like, oh, we're gonna get this thing. Like, this is just an animal.
Yeah,
it's kind of like not to look at it this filter all the time, but like they would never be able to make this now. In terms of, did she pour these many poisons in the TV show, George?
So this is where the spice comes back in.
Okay.
Because what they do is they have this giant pot of gumbo that Grandma had made, and they just put a shitload of hot sauce in there.
Oh,
and they say the hot sauce is going to explode its stomach and it'll die.
That's more of a prank than anything.
Okay. So, we're going to prank the fuck out of this monster, and it's going to be so embarrassed it's going to leave.
Yeah, I think that they probably were like, we probably shouldn't have kids watching other kids put a bunch of poison.
Yes.
Yeah. The constant note I've run into is in TV is always, if it's a repeatable behavior, you can't do it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was in the 90s, probably the same thing. So I would be surprised if the hot sauce is the fix for that for TV, but all these like red flag alarms just kept going off as I read, like, oh no, you do not want to tell kids to put turpentine in a pie
as a prank.
Right.
Yeah,
hey, is this bully messing you up? Put ammonia in this.
God.
No, kids are gonna learn the wrong lessons from this.
Yes.
But here's the thing. So the result is the same,
right?
From both, in that they initially are like, oh yeah, this is delicious, and like in the show they're like, fuck, he likes spicy food.
Yeah, and he likes the poison too.
Yeah, and it's this very like over the top like pantomime from the Gorilla Gator who's like, oh yeah, rubbing my tummy.
It's funny, the whole time I was picturing after you described it, the Taka and Razor from Ninja Turtles 2.
Yes.
And I'm picturing now that exact thing when they eat the drug-filled donuts.
Yes.
And they rub their tum-tums.
Yeah, they're like,
because they're babies, because that's what they are.
Yeah. It's intense as hell. But then afterward they're like, oh great, he enjoys it, and then he dies in theory.
In both of them he dies. Okay.
And the kids don't double tap. They need to always, you got to always double tap the monster.
In the book, Clark does try to double tap. He throws his comic book at its head when it's there.
Sure. I guess that's it. That's the final strike.
Yeah.
It is, and the fact that they do this fake out a second time, The first time I was like, all right, I'm in on this.
Sure.
The second time they pulled this fake out, I was like, that's too much.
Yeah, you're like, come on. Like, again, you're insulting my intelligence here, book.
Yeah, especially because like Gretchen goes up to it and she like kicks it and she's like looking at its eyes and she's like, it's dead.
Yeah,
Good.
I think its eyes roll up into its head. I believed the monster was genuinely dead at this moment because it paid off on things from earlier on in the book, at least in terms of the pies.
Yeah, they definitely convince you that it's dead. And they find another door that they didn't know about before, but it's also locked, right? So they're in the room, but then the monster pops up one last time. It's towering over them, and the dog, Charlie, tries to come to the rescue, and he throws the dog, which is traumatizing.
I was so worried about Charlie.
Me too.
I was so worried about him.
But instantly he's like, Charlie's okay. Like he throws that in right away so that you're not worried for too long. And then it starts smashing more stuff. I think it breaks a shovel over its leg because she tries to hit it with the shovel.
Right.
And then the final kill happens, right?
Well, I want to describe
please.
what they describe this guy as, because earlier they're described as bulging alligator eyes on the side of his head. And then here they completely change it, and all of a sudden his eyes were deep dark pools with tiny worms swimming in them.
Whoa.
Hot sour breath and a mouth full of bugs. He is a swamp, she realized. It's like, this is, first of all, not what we've been being chased by this entire time.
Yeah.
And second of all, that description is so much scarier than anything that's been described.
RL's like, let me have my poetry moment now.
It was really like, all right, this is it. Final confrontation time. Right. Again, very slashery.
Yes, yeah. And he puts his teeth upon her. He licks her to get a little taste, a little appetizer taste, right? And then he speaks and says, "You human? You human?" And then she says yes. And he keels over and dies because he says he's allergic to humans.
Yeah. He's smart enough to understand allergies. Like
yes. And that's the big point, Chad, is this thing is aware and has knowledge of allergies, which means they accidentally imprisoned and killed a sentient being.
Yeah, no shit this thing was mad when it got out.
Yeah. They imprisoned it and then murder it. Unbelievable. Go ahead, Chad.
I was so flabbergasted by, like, it felt like it dropped the ball on the 99-yard or the 1-yard line kind of thing. Like, like that idea of, okay, like, it's pretty scary. I hope the monster bites them and they pull out a gun and they shoot it right in the mouth like Jaws and explode or something. Instead, it's just like, it's like the joke ending kind of that RL likes to do at a time that the book hadn't really been funny in any way beforehand. Right. I was so mad. I'm sorry, I'm so mad.
It was Clark in the show, so it's interesting that they switch that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he just like sticks his hand out, and this dumb like rubber dragon, like his hand goes like fully down its throat, and then he's like, "Oh, you human!" And then it does the whole thing. It was not impressive.
And then it dies and falls through, and I'm assuming it falls through the door, right? In the same manner.
No, it explodes. Actually,
it explodes. That's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they get covered in slime, which is a nice moment.
Oh man, a cool Nickelodeon moment for us.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, as opposed to its body just decomposing slowly here in the house.
Yes. Like everything else in this old abandoned house.
Yeah, they'll never find it.
No.
And also, just at this point, like I kind of lost track of how long they've been in the house. There's something near the end where either one of the kids says, like, we spent all day running from this thing. And like, the parents aren't back. The grandparents aren't back yet. Like, what are you guys doing?
Listen, for all we know, the grandparents fucking drove off the road. And
my God, they might be dead in the swamp.
Old people, especially deaf old people, not great drivers. Typically.
No, I don't have any trust in these grandparents to be able to transport themselves safely anywhere. Right.
Plus, I mean, you just look at the fact that all old people are a reminder of our own mortality to begin with. And like these grandparents are a nightmare scenario.
Yes, definitely. And I'm sure the town does not accept them or want them in it. So I don't think
that's why they're out there in the swamp.
I don't think they're getting any help when they go to town. but
these two old smelly people just roll up and are like, please, there's a monster in our house.
We've been feeding it for weeks. We left our grandchildren with it.
and Gretchen does say that. She's like, no one is going to believe.
Yes.
Like, no one will come back.
Yes.
With them.
Yeah. They know that they have to take this into their own hands and they have to survive on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely it's an all-day affair.
Yeah. And then, so it's an all-day affair. They do that. They get out into the woods. And then they remember that there's a second letter. Because, of course, the grandparents remembered some other information in their multiple lapses in logic as they were writing out their free association letter that they wrote to
Oh,
these
my God.
kids.
Yeah. As they're just... I understand that the door opens to the swamp because that's how the video game worked, right? The monster crashes against the door and now it's open.
Yep.
Now you can go to the next level.
Yep.
But they decide to, like, let's take the walk through the swamp and not the road that is on the other side of the house.
Right.
Before they go, oh yeah, there was another letter that we just had on us the whole time.
And again,
they didn't check the inventory.
They should have read they should have read through their whole inventory before
proceeding. Oh shit, we had green herbs all over this. Oh, we could have.
I made this way harder on myself. Yeah, so they finally pull out the other letter that their grandparents couldn't have possibly stuck in the same envelope as the first letter. But so they read the second letter and they say, "Oh, by the way, you know what? I got to read the actual."
Yeah, please read the letter.
We got to read the letter, and they argue over wanting to read the letter. Clark, for some reason, just doesn't want to read it, which I guess, with how stupid the first letter was and how infuriating it was, I guess I understand where he's coming from, right?
Yeah. He's done with them. He's like, I don't want anything to do with them or their dumb letters anymore.
I have disowned those grandparents. I never owned them in the first place.
No, yeah, they're not my grandparents,
not
at
my
all.
idiot grandparents, but
yeah.
I'll read it for you.
Yeah, this letter's insane.
Dear Gretchen and Clark, we hope you children are safe and well. Thanks.
Shut up.
Thanks, you mean well.
Amazing opening.
We forgot one word of warning in the first letter. If the monster gets out and you do kill it and escape from the house, stay on the road. Do not go into the swamp. The monster's brothers and sisters live in the swamp. Dozens of them. We think they are out there waiting for him. We've seen the monsters in the swamp. We've heard them whistling to each other every night. They're unhappy their brother was captured. They're waiting for him to return. So they pissed off the other monsters.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, stay out of the swamp. It's not safe out there. Stay out of the swamp. Good luck. We love you.
Incredible.
XOXO grandma.
Yeah, the fact that they are like aware that these other swamp monsters are out there waiting for this one means that they know it's intelligent.
Yes, they know.
Yes.
They know what they've done, George.
They're the real monsters.
Yes, they realize that they have opened this box and they are responsible for the sin that is spilling out into the world.
Yeah, we could have made a pie trail from the upper story down out to the swamp to let the monster out.
Yes,
but we decided, we might be able to get like some money with a freak show traveling through town. So let's hold on to this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, they realized that their house was boring as shit, and maybe they thought that this monster could have been like a friend for the kids to play with or something.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, this is the last page. What Paul read is the end of the book with probably the most "fuck you" I ran out of pages.
Yes,
that I've read in a Goosebump book. So the good luck, we love you. A couple more chapters or a couple more sentences go by.
Yep,
and they hear whistling. Gretchen, Clark choked out my name. Do you hear that? What is that sound? What is it? It sounds like a whistle. That's what I thought, he whispered. What do we now? Any ideas? No, Clark, I replied softly. I don't have any more ideas. How about you? That's it.
Done.
Like, that. It's the author's voice just going like, I don't know.
Again.
Roll credits.
Again, this left me with so many questions. One, how much knowledge of human world do these monsters have? Two, are they all allergic to humans? And if so, that means that these kids are not in danger from the monsters eating them, but probably of being lost in the woods and starving, or being captured and held prisoner as like a ransom.
That's a hostage situation.
Yeah,
I heard.
Yeah, we got a monster hostage situation. The grandparents are gone. I don't know. Maybe the kids got ate. Is this the first book where the kids are implied to have been killed too?
There's definitely the, like, oh, the monster is still there kind of, like, ending he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't recall a single example. This feels like this isn't the first time. It's more like, it raises questions where my first thought was exactly what you had, Paul, of, are all the monsters allergic to humans? If so, there's no threat, right? Like there's little of it. But if not, that means that they essentially like kidnapped the runt of the litter, right? They kidnapped
the weakest one,
the poor kid
and
who's
tortured
allergic, and they kept him trapped away.
This is the prisoners of Goosebumps.
Yes. Oh my god. Oh my god. They just hear the whistle. The whistle from under the ground. It is.
Oh my god,
dude. I think we know where prisoners came from. They read this Goosebumps book.
Yeah, Villeneuve is just like, nobody read this Goosebumps book.
My secret source.
Wow. And I will say, I did just do a quick Google. Allergies do tend to run in the family, so
I think these kids are going to starve to death more than likely than be eaten by the monsters.
But they'll be scared the whole time. That's the real bad part.
That's true. Yeah, the terror is what's going to kill them. George, what did you think? How do you feel after finishing this book?
Here's what I'll say. The grandparents suck.
Yes.
But I thought that some of the horror moments genuinely worked for me.
Yeah.
In terms of like, if I was a kid, I would have been like, wow, that's scary.
Yeah.
And I think that I probably would have believed the first like death fake out too. So I think that there's a lot that works about this for me, especially because I listen to the show and you guys go through and more often than not it doesn't quite live up to the memory,
right?
And so the fact that this comes even a little close and still has some scary moments, I'm gonna call this one a success for me.
Okay.
I think that the ending is pretty frightening in terms of like, wow, these kids are fucked.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it ends on a good note. So yeah, I think that it's okay. Definitely there are parts that make absolutely no sense, but you get like a crazy monster running around a castle doing backbreakers on shit. Like,
yeah. I mean, what more can you ask for?
There's a poorer version of this Goosebumps book that follows even more of the tropes of just like they think they see something upstairs and it's them creeping around. More pranks. Yeah. Maybe there's one prank from the kids in this one, but like you could have been half a book of just one of them dresses up like the swamp monster and jumps out. Like it is fun that the monster is loose actively through the house.
Yes.
Yeah, and pretty early on. I mean, like you said, Paul, it's like halfway into the book when the monster gets out. And definitely it feels like they're compressing stuff into that back half. But the fact that it is like, hey, a monster for half of the book. I'm like, all right.
You can't complain about that. I agree with you 100% in that regard. It's just that letter is so insulting.
the letter
it really is.
And the parents' car situation game plan is nuts. Oh, and there's one detail I thought was worth mentioning was only that at one point they think the grandparents have come back. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my god! I forgot about
this. This was like, I don't understand what the car travel situation is anymore. They think the grandparents have come back. They run out to the door. The monster's somewhere upstairs, and it's just the sheriff or the cop or the guy in town with a gun has left a letter on the door from their parents saying,
yes, their grandparents.
I think it's from the parents.
Oh, you're right. It is from
it's the parents saying we have to be out longer.
Yeah, things are bad in Atlanta. We can't tell you what it is, but we're going to have to be here longer. So,
oh my god, it's the swamp monster pandemic.
I was just gonna say the swamp monster is just it's like they've already just like all come up at the same time. It's like the invitation, like the red light has come on and everybody's out.
Oh my god. I literally just watched that movie too.
Oh, there you go. This is where you do the 10 Cloverfield Lane of like they get out, but then they get into town and swamp monsters have already taken over everything.
Exactly.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, the swamp monster was the one who drove up.
I have the car now. Honk honk. Get up. But like, it's such an annoying detail to have in the book because it just like. It throws you every time of like, this is an unnecessary rule or detail that just makes you like question why any of it's possible when monster in the house alone with the kids is scary enough as it is.
Right.
Yeah. I will say I agree that the letter is insulting, but Gretchen's reaction to it truly, like I said, it made me laugh. And so I'm willing to forgive it just for the sake of sake of Gretchen freaking out.
And at least like he's kind of acknowledging, right, that this is
ridiculous. He's like, I know it's bad, you know it's bad. Let's just get past this.
We're just getting back to the monster. I just want to get back to the monster.
And, how many 80s and 70s slashers are there that, you have to get through the shitty, non-logical portions in order to get to the good kills.
Yep.
So.
You're right. I guess I can forgive it for that. This one was fine. At least it was interesting, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I had a blast reading this, as opposed to other books where have just been like, to call any of reading these a slog is kind of a pain because it's a kid's book,
right?
But this was an interesting read at the very least, as opposed to, I feel like we're just pacing, we're just treading water until we get to the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that. Again, I think the past couple have been pretty interesting. I think we're entering a period of Goosebumps where maybe he got a little bored of the way he was writing stuff, and now he just decides to maybe take the shackles off and just go full bonkers, right?
The juice is loose, but for R.L. Stein. And,
the goose is loose.
The goose is loose. I was going to say the Stein unwinds.
Oh my God, I love it. Well, hey, George, let me ask, to connect it to obviously your expansive knowledge of horror. We've referenced a few different movies already talking about this. It's like, if you're listening to this episode or you read this book and you want a better taste of swamp horror, do you have any key recommendations of movies that people should check out?
Great question.
Wow, in terms of swamp horror, my first instinct is going to be Hatchet. It's basically, and it's a proud ripoff of Friday the 13th.
Okay.
And it stars actually, Kane Hodder, who was he's pretty much the most famous person who actually portrayed Jason in terms of establishing sort of a physical presence and establishing him as a threat instead of, and so he plays the character, the main bad guy, the force in the swamp in Hatchet. And so there's a lot of fun kills. It's very goofy. It's very silly, sort of B-movie on purpose kind of thing. But
cool.
you could do a lot worse. Also, Anaconda is fun.
Okay,
yeah. I just watched, not Anaconda. I just watched Lake Placid last week. It's a blast.
There you go. That's lake, though, not swamp. Sorry.
So, okay. You know what? Actually, it's called Lake Placid, but there's definitely a swamp in that movie when I think about it. Right? Yeah.
Lakes can be swampy.
A swamp can flood into a body of water that stands in a more isolated pocket, I think.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right, Chad.
It's like a wetland area.
Chad, we're on board, Chad. We're with you.
Listen, Betty, to add on to that, not to hijack your recommendations, you should remind me, Lake Placid, Betty White is awesome in it. She's very, very good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What isn't she good in, though?
That's true. Also, it's I just discovered that it's written by David E. Kelly, who created Ally McBeal and Boston Legal, and it's clearly a script he wrote before he became a TV showrunner, and it's fun to see characters having snappy dialogue. Except instead of I want to have a baby, there's an alligator eating people.
Always a good time.
Well, it sounds like we have some good movie pairings based on this. That's great. Thank you again for that, George and Chad. And,
of course.
And George, thank you for being on the show. Can you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Absolutely. This was really a joy for me. I'm glad that we got to at least talk about a good book, too. So, really a good app for me to jump in on.
I gotta say, the first 12 chapters, I was really nervous for you. I was like, shit, I hope this didn't suck for him.
Yeah, well, me too. So... But yeah, so people can find me. Like I said, I'm the host of The Best Little Horror House in Philly. That show is on all major podcast platforms. So whatever you're listening to this on, you could probably listen to that on too. There is an episode with Paul that I highly recommend that you go check out. Hopefully we'll get Chad on there too, maybe.
I would love to.
There we go. And you can find me on Twitter at Little Horror PHL. And littlehorrorphl.com will also give you all kinds of links and directions and stuff. So just go there or Twitter.
Sweet. And we'll put those in the description as well.
Great.
Guys, I think I'm feeling a little hot and clammy here. I think I'm going to
go take a dip in a swamp.
I'm going to take a dip in the swamp. Yeah, I'm just going to jump in and get some of that sweet, sweet algae all in my lungs.
That healing algae all over my body.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna jump in. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye, Chad. Oh no, there's a monster.
Chad.
He jumped right into a monster's mouth.
Oh God, rookie mistake. You always look where you're jumping.
Well, luckily he covered himself in hot sauce before, so it's gonna throw him up for sure.
It's fine. I'm alive, but my eyes burn now.
Oh, you look like that doll. It's disgusting. Ew, stay in there. Goodbye, everybody. We love you.
thank you all for listening to another episode of Goosebuds, and we just wanted to go ahead and say thank you to all of the wonderful people who have their souls bound in flesh pages in the Book of Names. And we also want to say thank you to the very fresh names.
The fresh pages.
The ones with the blood still dripping from the letters. And their names are Wesley.
And Timothy Misodulakis.
What about Thomas Miller?
Shay Day.
Milky Bar Nuggets.
Or Kelly Sestair?
Keith Hallicrow.
Jacob Foster.
Aogan Welcome.
Dakota Campion.
Clay McCarty, thank you for lending your skin.
And Chris 1-800-CRANK-IT Nelson. Welcome, you phone man.
You're all damned. Now for the names that are the most damned. Maybe one day you will be here, Wesley. We want to say, I'll just start again. We want to say thank you to my boy Stefan Jive Turkey Kuwabara.
And Hollis Hornbake.
Buddy Morrill.
Cameron Murphy Audio.
Clayton C.
David Cron.
Fred Atkins.
Josh Robertson.
Michael McDowell.
Mickey C.
Mike Lanteri.
Nathan Dolezal.
Nick Hinkle.
Alcade.
Jared Mason.
Jim Greaves.
Mel Dipson.
Not to Pearl Henderson.
Joshua Lopez.
Zang Keith.
Afsheen.
Danky McStanky.
Jennifer Britton.
Aaron T. Strunk.
Dango Twists.
Victor.
Brian Wells.
Stay safe and wash all of your zenticles thoroughly.
That's smart. If you have zenticles, you want to keep
Yeah.
them clean. Drew Applegate.
Becca McWilliams.
Stealth Bates.
Jonas Blatterman.
Joseph Miranda.
Patrick Reynolds.
Robert Moon.
Scott Colopy.
Jason U. Crooker.
John Keaty.
Third, Sergio.
Christina Doling.
Clay Castle.
Colin, and I wear Billabong. What? Is this an ad?
They made you do an ad.
They made me an ad.
Miguel Pardo.
Still a pretty decent dog, generally speaking. That's an ad for that dog.
Calf.
Joe, remember to save early and often, Scott.
Matt, the half-court warlock bachelor.
Paul Grasso.
Trans rights, baby.
Walter Fraser.
Ishak Arifin.
Maddie.
Matthew, time travel paradox pals.
Ranger had a moral obligation to stop 9/11, but instead he saved 2 children. What's that story?
We gotta read that
what is
story.
that
We gotta
story?
read that story.
Reinfected.
Taylor Dierks.
Tyler Penner.
Alan Saylor.
Chosen One.
Cody Redfield.
Gregory D. Warren.
James Roy.
Mikey Gillo.
Sam Hash.
Aiden Alexander Dice.
Alistair Perez.
Bradford Coulter.
Dylan Vaughn.
Jin Kay.
Jonas Eggman.
Rich Hilborn.
Toothless Barry, the Whistler Bostowitz.
Nice job.
Trendy Moron.
You always got to go with the toothless sound for that one. Joshua Jacob Witz.
Justin Wagman.
Trent Davis.
2 in the slink, also 1 in the slink, all 3 in the slink then.
Cardboard Walk.
Connor Church.
Frank N. Stein.
Oh,
Fucking
oh my God.
Yo, Frankenstein's in our book? Cool.
Yeah. Whew.
Guys, it's Frank and Stein's monster. Let's be clear. Yeah.
Scared.
How about Leviathan?
I think it might just be Levithan.
It is.
Is it? Oh,
It
I'm so
is.
sorry. I misjudged you as a monster. Leviathan.
Yeah, you thought they were a monster. Ryan Shell.
Tommy, obligatory holiday name change, Hoey.
Vincent Modica.
Luke Noodles.
Heath Robinson.
Rug.
Up and Champ.
Sam Bambino.
Alicia Grafe.
Anthony Kuwabara.
Brock Graham.
Hugh Bolin.
Joe Gorman. Joe Goman.
Joe Goman. Carol.
I think that's Carl. I think that's supposed to be Carl, my friend.
That's just how I say Carol. I'm sorry, man. I say a K and I gotta say it that way.
It's a regional dialect.
Carol.
Moloister.
Blake Alvarez.
Elusive Koala.
Jake Young.
Yanni Markovina.
Space Tiger.
Jesus Christ.
Boney.
Brooke X.
Christian Van Skyver.
Corey Shelley.
Jessica Zyball.
Wow. Joe.
Joe really tripped you up.
Low Belly Hate Me.
Nathan Remick.
Divaldi.
Brian Hopgood.
Jeremy Lowe.
Zach Connor.
Anxious Serve.
Reed Stubendike.
Burn, your rap stepdad.
Cool.
Cool.
Foolish for Deborah.
Jake H.
Joey Evans.
Jordan Lockwood.
Valhalla Black.
Carewise Gamgee.
Joe Spooky Digital Ghost Tierney.
Kevin Hamilton.
Patreon_donator, yo.
Cameron Hansen.
Eric England.
Swag Bumps Nightmare at Campiolo Squire.
Tom Whitman.
W Hitman. Oh, shit.
Tom W. Hitman.
Podcast over. We're all dead. John the Howling Eye Duda.
Llama Consultant.
Nicholas Johnson.
Andrew Jadzik talks to Joe Pera about Goosebuds.
Etonomore.
General Lee Depresse.
Goose Time.
Lord Cornwallis at your service.
Andrew Evans.
Cardamom Birkenbeano.
Dingus Dank Ding Dung Dunkelheim.
Elizabeth Steenweg.
Yeah.
Daddy's Happy Apple Boy.
Yappelin.
Baz Gerritsen.
Chris Pittman.
Dan.
Dylan Yads.
Goon Cahoots.
Justin Garrett.
Actually, it's just Garrett.
Oops.
Oddly enough.
It's just Garrett.
It's just Garrett. Egg baby.
Eric Soto.
Hey, fellas, we're all smelling real good.
I just showered a little while ago, so that's true. Buff Cat.
Calamity Carl.
Dylan McCann.
Germ Juice.
Jonas Evan Voldson.
Sean Minogue.
SNES Chalmers. I fucked it up.
Jacob the Rough-Handed.
Nick Johnson.
Arachnid Delight.
John Pigeon Hat Barber.
Scotty Pippen.
He's back for another month.
Triangle Offense, keeping it together.
Keep the dream team together, baby. Stephen Day.
Kate Ann Franklin.
Chip Hansen.
Dak Prinky.
Dr. Worm.
Jared Nutty.
Matt McClellan.
McClellan. R.L. Slink.
Stink Lich.
Zach Bush.
Adam Morocco.
I'm always getting this one.
Help me, other two guys. I can't stop jacking while we read these names. How would they help me? That's my question.
To help you jack faster.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Jeremy Bowser.
J.R. Chip.
Nathan Whitmore.
Plushy Pal.
Ryan Carroll.
Sadie Kitson.
I wish R.L. Stein were my dad.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Megan McCormick Mason.
Andrew Barrow.
Hoodleman.
Horace McPowers.
Manuel Aviles.
Ninja Breadman.
S.
Spencer Kimball.
Tanya Turtle.
Wacky user name.
Bad Vibes Jr.
Brett.
Daniel Hirschberger.
Got little old Moa pretty freaked.
Robert Edward Hodgson Jr.
Deja Monet.
Elliot Thompson III.
Russell Gore.
Slink Forte.
Adam, you goofed.
Ashley W.
Cameron.
One jalapeno.
Lordzer.
Wonderskin.
Jordan Slamsy.
Coming down from the rafters, it's Jordan Slamsy. Followed up by, oh my god, is that Muscles Bear?
It is a Muscles Bear. Parker Lee.
And following it up, Stinkline the Goblin is here. He's gonna slam dunk, probably.
Hell yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
We love you guys. Welcome to the book.
Bye-bye.